Hello, welcome back to Everlasting Summer. I think I'm in an epilogue for Alisa now. It seems I'm getting old. The day was over and the hangover should have been long gone, but I still felt sick and dizzy. Despite how hard I tried, I was unable to open my eyes. I just rolled over. I wonder what awaits me in the district center. How am I to live? Maybe it's not all that bad. Well, sure, I don't know where to begin, but on the other hand, this world doesn't seem hostile. I know a lot of things here. Everyone speaks Russian, so maybe nothing bad is going to happen. Suddenly, I felt very sick. Oh man, I thought it was all gone by yesterday evening. I managed to reach the toilet, moving instinctively. After some time, when my dirty business was done, I returned to the room, and then I realized I'm back in my old flat. However, it's not so old. It seems that nothing had changed during the week of my absence. The dust layers haven't even grown thicker. The keyboard position, monitor incline, and the stain from a cup of tea on the table stung my eyes. Theoretically, a man in my condition shouldn't notice such details, but the entire room drew my attention to the most minor of details as if it was twinkling with different colors. The socks were thrown around in exactly the same manner as they had been before. The blanket sat rumpled on the unmade bed as it was before. The dirty window showed the same view of the street like a cracked kinescope. In vain, I tried to become terrified or at least scared. Maybe it's shock effect, post-traumatic stress disorder, or something like that. After all, several hours ago, I wasn't even thinking of returning to the real world. The pioneer camp, the girls, Alisa, the mystical district center where I would have arrived if I hadn't woken up in my flat, all that had started to seem real to me. Maybe my fantastic vacation to Sylvianok was just a dream. My feet started to rack up circles around the room. I held my hands behind my back and started to think everything over. Only one thing is clear. I returned as suddenly as I arrived there, without any reason or logic. Maybe there was some sort of explanation, but it's beyond my or human comprehension. Whether it was a trick by interstellar forces, or a supreme mind, or government experiments, I believe the last one to be the least likely. They left no clues. If I was unable to find answers in the camp, it would be foolish to expect things to become clearer here. It's like searching for evidence in a house that's been burned to ashes. Even if a crime was committed, all the evidence was destroyed by fire. Maybe if I had the skills and equipment of a criminologist, I could find something, but the memories of the week spent in the camp are all I've got. But it wasn't a dream. I knew it for sure. My hangover was absolutely real. My feelings and emotions were genuine, not just the stuff of dreams. Therefore, I've been there. I spent a week in the Soviet pioneer camp with the camp leader and the pioneers. With Alyssa. Memories of her made me sigh. It would have been great to leave with her. Wait a minute. What's wrong with me? I should be glad I returned home to the real world. Or shouldn't I? For now, I just couldn't evaluate this situation reasonably. I couldn't understand whether I wanted to stay there or to enjoy my long awaited return. I noticed a 5 ruble coin on the table. I took it and began to toss it up without any purpose, counting the number of heads and tails. A long time ago, maybe even in school, I heard in an infinite number of coin tosses, the probabilities are not equal to 50% each. Maybe it's because a coin doesn't have a perfect shape and weight, or because of some other reason. However, after some time, I counted 70 heads and 71 tails. So the theory of relativity lies, but I'm not the man to judge it. I don't know much about it. I recalled my childhood when I had heard the word tails for the first time. For some reason, it always made me think of squirrels. Maybe there's some logic in this. A squirrel does indeed have a tail. Now, this theory seems strange to me, but at the same time, I couldn't find any conclusive evidence to disprove it. So, does it mean that squirrels come out more frequently than heads? But one must consider that a squirrel has a head as well, so I yanked on my hair and sighed, exhausted. Now is not the time for thinking of such rubbish. On the other hand, what is now the right time for? What can I do? What is under my control? If I hadn't bothered trying to find answers during the week there, what would be the point of thinking now? Maybe I should just try to go back to my ordinary life. The words ordinary life were painful to me. Why did I choose that specific word? I could have said past, former, or something else. I guess because it was what I was used to. That's the most obvious answer. As they say, what you get used to becomes second nature to you. Instantly, all of the last week's events floated before my eyes. Did I really want to stay there so badly? Was just 1 week enough for me to get used to Olga Dmitrievna picking on me all the time, Ulyana's pranks and joking around, or was this cheekiness and mockery? I had no answer to this question, but it's obvious that I already miss it. Although I'm sure I'll never return there. Obviously, I can't tell whether the force that brought me there might want to entertain itself again, and again, and again. It is possible, but for now, I know. I have what I have, an adventure that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Man, how many people get to experience something like that? Even books, even dreams about such things are unthinkable. The main thing is that it wasn't Dr. Moreau's evil island, but a normal Soviet pioneer camp with normal pioneers. And its commonness was overlaid by the astonishing origin of my arrival there. Anyway, it wasn't the worst experience of my life. Perhaps it was one of the best. Obviously, it's sad that everything just ended halfway through, but every story has an end. It's good that it has ended that way. Who knows what else could have happened? Oh. Time passed. The events that took place in the camp now seem more like a fascinating novel I once read. Now I haven't forgotten them. I could recall them in the finest detail. I remember how as a child I used to lie under a blanket with a flashlight and read a fascinating book about spaceflight until dawn. Sometimes I was unable to get up and go to school. My parents always used to scold me for that, but with every night approaching, I would carefully turn every page, trying to absorb every minor detail of the story. I had similar feelings about that pioneer camp, reality if I can consider it such, now seemed more like a book. I didn't think it was bad at all. In the end, the main thing is to remember, and it is not important whether these memories take the form of a slideshow, photos, video, or audio. Now each bus made me feel both fear and hope. At first I had circled around the 410 route without a purpose. Several times I fell asleep on the same seat, but nothing happened, not even a trace of something supernatural. As times went by, I stopped these idle trips. Something changed in my life, I just couldn't do otherwise. A couple of weeks after my return from the camp, I took up my guitar that was lying one way and gathering dust in the corner. Striking a couple of chords, I remembered Alisa. For me, her image was inseparable from this instrument. At first, it didn't work out very well. Maybe I just had no talent for music. I started reading teach-yourself books and watching video lessons. On the other hand, all the efforts wasn't a burden anymore. I just played the chords and polished my skill. And as with any kind of activity, including music, practice makes perfect. About half a year later, I realized that I had achieved some results. At least I could now smoothly play parts of my favorite songs. Satisfied with my progress, I put a couple of advertisements on music forums, intending to form my own band. I still had no idea what kind of music I wanted to play. My tastes varied from something really heavy to anime soundtracks. At first, it seemed impossible for me. I would have to communicate with strangers. And what if we are just too different? And anyway, how do I explain to others what music I want to make? But it all worked out much easier. The potential candidates turned out to be not so frightening, and our tastes were mostly the same. After all, we shared the same goals, so issues stemming from a lack of understanding could be resolved. And soon we had a band. Suddenly I discovered my talent as a composer. Having spent entire days and nights on the note editor and sequencers, I started composing okayish things, at least in the opinions of the other band members and pals I showed my songs to. Quite soon we gave our first concert. A D-list club not significantly more spacious than my bedroom, 3.5 viewers who weren't exactly sober. I was helplessly anxious, and the sound equipment was constantly malfunctioning, but all of that didn't bother me because I was happy, since this was just the first step to success. However, it was a long time before we were invited again. With great difficulty, we managed to record 3 tracks and publish them on the internet. The reviews were far from ecstatic, but it didn't bother me much. It was just the beginning. Maybe some consider my music just a leisure activity or a brief fixation, but for me, it was serious. After all, it was me who founded the band, and all the music was mine as well. I felt a personal responsibility for the fate of my creation. Every spare moment I spent on improving my performance technique, and after a year, I could already confidently say that I wasn't the worst guitarist in the world. Then some sort of popularity came. We were giving concerts almost every week, and were finally getting paid. It was important that it was just 500 rubles per man. The fact that our work was in demand and someone was ready to pay for it, even though we were usually a warm-up for other bands, was what mattered. I was sitting before my monitor, torturing a guitar. The date of an upcoming concert was thickly circled on the computer desktop calendar. The very thought of that gave me goosebumps. It will be the first time we'll be headliners. And we'll have an album presentation as well. I wonder how many discs would be sold. Of course the CD era is already over, but there are still some who appreciate it. And maybe some will buy it just to support the band. I looked at the date once more. Yes, it is exactly a year since I returned from Semyon. My smile reflected in the darkened monitor screen. I wonder whether Alisa would like my music if she existed in this world. Don't think so. She preferred Soviet rock classics. But who knows? I played a couple of complicated guitar parts and concluded, with a feeling of satisfaction, that the sound of my guitar surpasses by far that of the Soviet Euro guitars, and my skill has overcome that of the guitarists of the same era. I wonder whether I would have achieved all this without those fantastic events. Unlikely. Nothing strange about that. Lots of people rethink their life after stepping close to the edge. Sure, nothing dangerous happened back then, but a psychological shock is a good substitute for great danger. I rehearsed my part once more, put the guitar into a case, packed all my stuff, and headed to the exit. It was cold outside, just like that day. Slowly, I approached the bus stop for the 410. Such a coincidence, I'm going to the club on this very same bus. With a sinking heart, I counted down the seconds. Soon the bus arrived. It idly opened its doors and swallowed up a few passengers. Oh. It was a winter night, just like back then. Cars flashed by outside with their headlights igniting the city as it got ready to sleep. The closer we got to the downtown area, the more people there were in the streets. Some of them were chatting merrily, some were perusing magnificent boutique windows, and some were hurrying somewhere, paying no attention to anything. This day, I had no wish to return to that camp. Any other time, maybe, but not today. I must play the concert and the rest of it. I had a clear aim, and nothing else mattered. The club was considerably bigger than the one we played our first concert in, but at the moment it was empty. The sound check was going on. I couldn't hear the drums through the monitor loudspeakers, which I desperately tried to tell the sound guy about. Sound tuned, gadgets installed, set lists all prepared, ready to rock. But it is a special day. We are not doing the warm-up. The other guys are doing the warm-up before our concert. Thus, our entrance is last. As I listened to the first band, I noticed that they have a lot of improving to do. On the other hand, we were no better not so long ago. As the time got closer to the start of our performance, my tension grew enormous. Come on, I was literally shaking with anxiety. I decided not to listen to the other band and to wait calmly in the dressing room. Judging by their expressions, my mates were in the same mood. We were silent. Actually, we had nothing to talk about. Our parts were learned and perfected a long time ago. Only nervousness could hinder us, but we already have some experience, so everything will be fine. At least I comforted myself with this thought. Oh, and now, finally, the time has come. I don't remember how we entered the stage and greeted the audience. My consciousness turned on when the first chords of our first song came from the speakers. While sitting in the makeup room, I desperately tried to warm my ice-cold fingers, but now they ran from string to string without the slightest mistake, as if they were charmed. A thought flashed across my mind. Why didn't I still make a single mistake? When I played all these parts at home during rehearsals, I never thought about it. Everything seemed a matter of course. But now, when I stood in front of an audience, it felt different. Somewhere deep in my mind, there was a thought that soon my finger would slip, and thank goodness the thinking didn't interfere with my playing. Our performance was nearing the end, and now it was the time for the difficult solo I'd been learning for so long. By that point, my nervousness had vanished, and I played through it perfectly, even better than during the rehearsals. Ooh. Finally, our performance was over, and the concert hall burst with applause. I smiled awkwardly, or at least I thought so, and bowed several times with the rest of the band. They shouted "Encore" to us. Even without them shouting, I would have been glad to play something else, but we ran out of songs as we were just a newly formed band. Euphoria prevailed in the dressing room as we congratulated and hugged each other. The sounds of opening champagne bottles echoed in the halls. All our discs had been sold, which made me even happier. Finally, I managed to become something too. It's impossible to predict the future of our band, or of the whole affair with music. But one thing was clear. I finally found something I am interested in and can dedicate my entire life to. As well as that, I can see that it may be able to make people other than me happy too. I was probably now the happiest man on the earth. At least it was surely the best moment of my life. Yay! The club is empty, instruments are packed, and I'm waiting for the others so we can go home. Waiting. I glanced at the stage where I'd been standing just an hour ago. Once again, joy, pleasure, and excitement gripped me. This won't be the last time I appear on that stage for sure, and maybe even grander stages like concert halls and Olympic stadiums are in my future. Who knows? Anything is possible now. After saying goodbye to my mates, I ran to the bus stop and luckily caught the 410 bus. Hmm. Nobody was inside. I took a seat behind the driver, just like back then. Some familiar tune could be heard from the radio. Maybe one day my songs will also be played on the radio. In some way, these trips were similar to the events that took place a year ago. I mean, at the moment, everything is as expected. Achieved by means of hard work, and the planned result is fulfilled. But I'm returning as another man. A man who has changed in a way. Uh, is that it? Okay. Whoa. Every story has its beginning and its end. Every story has its own outline, synopsis, contents, key points, a prologue, and an epilogue. And there's no book which, if you read it again, will not reveal new details you didn't notice before. Skip. Yep. Oh, okay. Oh. Ooh. This is a neat novel. It's pretty interesting that it's Russian. Reading a Russian visual novel. Well, this is different. It's interesting how the routes work in this novel. I don't really understand what I need to do, but I'll figure it out. Alright, bye!